Welcome to Journeys of Empowerment, where real stories, raw truth and powerful shifts come to life. I'm Michiel Sujit Rijt, and around here, we don't do small talk. We spark transformation. Let's go! Still trying to fix performance with new processes, more training or better KPIs? That's not the problem. Behavior is. Nearwater flips the script with a method that actually works. No gimmicks, no fluff. In the awareness workshop, you'll learn why good processes fail in execution, why learning doesn't stick, and how to build teams that own behavior, not just follow rules. Change shouldn't drain you, it should drive you. Dare to lead different? Visit neotopia.nl. What happens when you step out of the boardroom into your own story? In this episode, I sit down with Tessa de Flines, angel investor, co-founder of Nearwater and passionate advocate for women founders. After nearly 2 decades in banking, Tessa made a conscious shift, aligning her professional expertise with her personal purpose. We explore a journey from corporate life into purpose-driven entrepreneurship, where strategy means vulnerability and leadership takes on a whole new meaning. Realigning career after years in finance, advocating for visibility and long-term support for female founders, turning personal grief into authentic connection, embracing fractional roles to create flexibility and impact, and investing with heart, treating ideas as sacred and people with care. One of her insights stayed with me. Visibility isn't vanity, it's a vital leadership skill. This is an invitation to reflect. What part of your story are you still keeping hidden? And what might happen if you let it be seen? Let's dive into it. Yes, but every time is new and unique. Welcome, Tessa de
Flines.
Yeah, because I almost said de Flines, but it's de Flines.
Yeah, yes. De Flines. Yeah, Laurie had a lot of difficulty with that one as well. She kept saying it wrong.
Oh, luckily, I'm not the only one. Hey, welcome to Journeys of Empowerment. And let's just right away dive deep into first your professional journey. And what I can find right now on LinkedIn is the co-founder of Master of Skill, the founder of Nearwater Consultancy. You are the board member of Female Ventures. And a lot more, of course. Where do you want to start?
I think we can start with Masters of Scale. I think that's been the past 5 years. Masters of Scale came from the idea of my two co-founders, who are serial entrepreneurs, and they saw that, especially where one of them, Duke, spent a lot of time in Yes Delft. He saw that at some point, founders outgrew the accelerator and the startup phase and came into the scaling phase. And we're actually missing support. They came into what Duke always called the no man's land of support, where you're too small for one of these big fancy consultancies, and you've outgrown the startup support, and that's where the idea of Masters of Scale came from, to connect experienced entrepreneurs and experts to scaling founders. And I first met Duke and my other partner, Duke, their husband and wife. I know, Duke and Duke.
I was okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I first met them in 2020. Actually, Duke I got connected to through someone in my network. Yeah. And I was just actually at the start of my own consultancy, Nearwater, at the time. So
you were already in the
Yeah. So I had left ABN AMRO in 2018, worked for 2 years for 2 smaller companies as basically interim but full-time COO, but then decided I wanted to work more on a project basis. And so I had started Nearwater already at the beginning of 2020. I built a website, started talking to my network, and I realized, I want to work with startups and scale-ups, but don't really have them in my network, having much more of a corporate network at the time. And so someone in my network said, you have to talk to Duke. So I thought, okay, I'll talk to Duke. And we had a really nice conversation. And he said, yeah, you're not an experienced founder, but you have other qualities and skills that scaling founders need. So join us. I thought, great. An acquisition channel for myself. Because my network was where I was lacking at the time. It's different nowadays. So that's how I first started, and we called. It was still in idea phase at the time. It wasn't a official BV or company yet, and it was just a group of people. At the beginning, excited about the potential, and so I joined as a master at the time, as we were called, and we had a first kickoff. A week later, the lockdown came.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that was kind of a strange timing. But during that time, I thought, I want to, how can I help people in this time? Where I didn't have really any assignments at the time. I'd had a few proposals running, but those all just fell in the water because of what was happening. People at the time, people wanted to meet face to face. Video calling. Yeah, I'd been doing video calling for years at ABN AMRO because I worked in an international environment. But a lot of people just weren't used to that yet. No. So, it was, okay, let's postpone the meeting, let's postpone. And then, of course, we know it took a little longer than a few weeks before you could meet face-to-face again. But, and I thought, how can I help during this time? And so I posted on LinkedIn saying, I'm willing to offer any entrepreneur a day, sparring, help you for a day, because that's what I can do at this time. I have the time. And I got really nice responses to that. A few people through my network, and I did spar with them. And then I thought, but actually this is also something for Masters of Scale. Can we, as this community, have the same offer? So I reached out to the then founders of, or still founders, but there was a few other people involved at the time, and suggested it. And they said, yeah, sure, Tessa, let's talk about it. And so I started to get involved from a more, putting things on paper for branding and building a community and doing this. And, I just put a few slides together and they're like, what? You did that in just a day? I'm like, yeah. But of course, coming from a corporate background, just making slides, putting ideas on paper concisely, it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
But for them, that was not second nature. And they're like, oh, wow, okay. And so, they said, Tessa, we can't pay you, but, would you want to continue working with us? And I thought, why not? This is great for my learning, for my network, and for helping build this acquisition channel that's hopefully going to be working for me. And 2 months later, they asked me to join as co-founder. So that's where my journey, so we started the three of us. There was two other people who in the end decided not to become full co-founders. But that's how, really how my entrepreneurial journey truly started. I'd been working with or in startups or in SME and, of course, had kind of launched my own company. But really, so Nearwater kind of took a back seat. Yeah. I still had a few clients that I was working with. And actually the first year, because at the same time, I was also exploring other things. I was working with a few other freelancers to build propositions. One was called Winning Move. With someone else who I still work with today, but more as her support. We were building a proposition for SME accountancies. So I had all these things running at the same time. It was really my start of the entrepreneurial journey. But after a year, I realized, okay, no, I can't build and do acquisition and really for 4 different things. That's just not going to work. No. So
not all in startup stage, right?
No. That's just
at
it's
the
not.
Same time.
No, not at the same time. No. So I decided about a year after joining Masters of Scale, or after we fully launched Masters of Scale, I decided to focus on it full time. So then Nearwater really went into the background. Yeah. That's why also now the website hasn't been updated since then. A lot has changed, but so really my focus was on those years, or the past since then, was on building Masters of Scale. Really starting to get the name out there, get building the community of masters who we connected to our customers, and we continue to grow. of course, we also faced challenges. We noticed it's a tough target group. Founders who think, I've been through the startup phase. I survived that.
I don't need it.
I can do this on my own now. And at the same time, it's also a group that's used to a lot of free advice. In the Netherlands, you have programs that are free, advisors, investors, mentors, a lot of free advice. Our belief was that free advice isn't valued as much. And it can't be as long-term and, weekly usually. So that's really how we position Masters of Scale for any kind of scaling challenges. We have this broad network of
masters per discipline, or
we had people per disciplines, various sector. So we didn't focus at the time. We didn't focus, or at the beginning, we didn't focus on one particular segment or discipline. At some point, we did make a choice to focus more on fundraising support. So not as a broker, but really in the preparation challenge, so fundraising preparation.
Investor readiness.
Yeah, investor readiness. Okay. So that's where a lot of our projects started to focus more on. But we did notice that with us not fulfilling the broker role, where we, if it was an investor in our network, we definitely would introduce them.
Match them.
But we weren't. It wasn't our core business.
No.
And we noticed, that then is a little awkward at some point. And what we also were taken by surprise was that we started to get traction from accelerators. So
that's interesting.
Because they realized, and that came also through, because at some point I started angel investing myself, but I'm sure we'll touch on that later. Yes. And I got connected into Rockstart, and they realized, we have a really strong, qualified pool of people in Masters of Scale. We need someone to do a workshop on fundraising or on others, or we need someone to spar with one of our startups on a particular topic. And so they started to reach out to us to get connected,
collaborate, and
and we started to then get more and more accelerators that were doing that. So that was actually an unexpected product market fit that we definitely enjoyed.
I believe the initial thought about product market fit will ultimately almost never become the real product market fit. There's always an assumption, and we have to validate. But validation is something different than really moving forward and go to market and really getting customers into and ready to pay. Then all of a sudden there are a lot of iterations until pivots and before you reach product market fit. So that's interesting. It's by surprise, and at the end of the day, it is still in the same sort of ecosystem. So it was a matter of time. Rockstart reach out, for instance.
Yeah. It's just, of course, for us was a pleasant surprise. And at some point, we realized that we as founders were doing a lot of the sales and marketing. But that wasn't necessarily where our passion laid, right? We wanted to help the companies, and I was pretty much the COO of Masters of Scale, so I was doing a lot of coordinating. And at some point, we realized, we actually want to focus ourselves more on helping companies directly. And of course, we did it in between, but the time was limited, and we were more focused on getting assignments for other people. So what we did was we made a decision actually end of last year to transform Masters of Scale into a platform-only organization where basically supply and demand can find each other. And especially we're making use of an existing tool called StellarUp. And we'll be launching in the next few weeks the platform, first focusing on the accelerators, or the founder groups, as we call them. So basically organizations where there's groups of startups or scale-ups under one roof. And so they can then put a call for proposal on the platform, and our
sort of recommendation engine behind it, thought behind it, recommendation and matching engine.
Yeah, well, we're not that far yet that it's going to automatically match.
No, okay.
But we have a group of 50 masters and experts now.
Yes.
We also started adding experts at the time that were more focused on specific disciplines.
Yeah.
They can then reply to the call for proposal.
Cool.
But at least and that's scaling founders can also go on the platform, and then they know that at least they're getting responses from a pre-vetted, qualified group of people.
Yeah.
So
and before we, because this is an interesting starting point, and before we dive deep into also the transition to Nearwater, which was on the background, maybe also. For us to understand is what made you decide to leave corporate life to move into the bumpy road of start and scale up, the uncertainty, the grinding, the whole. Why?
Yeah, that's it's always interesting to reflect back on that. I'd been working in large corporates, I think, for about 18 years when. ABN AMRO, who I worked for the longest, 12 years of those 18 years, I worked for ABN AMRO, always in a head office function, so a support function. And I was always doing change programs or change projects, process improvement, strategy, and always internationally, so always engaging with countries. And then the real impact was in the country itself. And there, we had a reorganization where first our business unit CEO was let go, then my boss, and basically that whole management team was let go. And I thought, no, okay, I'm still going to give it a chance. But at some point I realized, no, you know what? I think it's time to make a change.
Yes.
Also because at some point change in a large corporate can be quite frustrating. But up until then, I was just part of the system, and I had so many learning opportunities. I got to travel the world.
It's a paid academy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I was got to follow leadership courses, and I worked with great people. That's everyone who I've ever worked with at ABN AMRO has been fantastic, and that was it felt like home for a long time. Mm-hmm. But I decided, what, I think it's time to push on the button, as they said, and I was able to leave with a package. Yeah. So that also, of course, made the transition more easy.
Yeah, you had some time.
Yeah. And already before that happened, and actually that's what also made me come to this decision was, and we've discussed that before, is that I was overstressed at some point because of the whole reorganization. I felt that I wasn't being valued, and I wasn't adding value. Mm-hmm. And during the time that I'd never before had any kind of experience with mental challenges or burnouts or anything, and that was for me the first time that I actually felt something like that. And so I was able to take some time off to get better. Yes. And during that time, I realized, I think 12 years, it's been a nice time. But I did make that decision not from a point of feeling weak but really from a point of strength. And
before we go further, what specific decision are we talking about?
To leave ABN AMRO. The corporate. Yeah,
but that doesn't necessarily say that was a logical choice to step into the startup and scale up scene. So
no, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. We're not there yet. No. But I wanted to highlight also this bump in the road as part of this journey. Mm-hmm. So then I worked for another 3 months for ABN AMRO, running a strategic project, which was great, and I felt good again. But during that process, and that's why I thought of it. During that process, I also reconnected with my network, of course, I've been connected with my network, but started in a different fashion because I already knew that I was going to be leaving. Reconnected with my network from that perspective, and I spoke to someone who had been building her own company, an advisory company, and she was looking for someone to help her build the more the business side of it. She was the expert. It was on insider risk management, so a very specific topic. And I thought, oh, cool. That combines psychology and business, because that's really what it was focused on. She had a security and psychology background, and it was about being able to detect if someone was going to leak data or sabotage or anything like that before it actually happened.
Based upon data on behavior. Well,
and observation. She was training people and managers on what signs. So that's really where the psychology came in.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I think she called it the critical path.
Yeah.
So if someone is, getting off the critical path, so that fascinated me.
Yeah.
And, okay. And her husband was also a very successful entrepreneur, had sold his company a year before that. So when I started working with her, I always call myself kind of an accidental entrepreneur, because 1 month after leaving ABN AMRO, I was working for her. So it was quite a shift. But the minute I started doing that, and obviously it wasn't my own company, but we were potentially going to discuss, me stepping in as a late co-founder. Yeah. So I felt very engaged as, okay, this is a company that maybe I'll be part of. During the time, unfortunately as well, my father was really sick and ended up passing away. So at the same time and that was in the US. So it was, I was going back and forth for a week, a month. So at the same time, my focus wasn't also fully there. So that was a bit of a challenge during that time. And in the end, for various reasons, she decided to put the company on hold. And so for me, it ended because it was her expertise. But it did open up my eyes to more the startup scale-up world.
Yeah, more entrepreneurship. Right?
Yeah, entrepreneurship. And I thought, it was like a breath of fresh air. After having worked for large corporates for so long, where change went so slowly, I could make changes quickly. I could see the impact of what I was doing. And that just felt great. It was
more direct feedback of what you're actually doing and trying to achieve.
Yes. Yeah. So that was for me when that transition happened. And I thought, okay, no, I don't need to go back to the corporate world.
Okay, that's clear.
Yeah.
That is a really clear point.
Yeah. So I then just said, okay, but what's next? I did decide then, okay, I'm going to take some time off. My dad had passed away during that time, so I decided, I think that assignment ended in August, and I decided I'm going to take off until the end of the year, because I really hadn't had any time, to grieve. I had a lot of stuff I had to arrange because, my mom had already passed away many years before. So I had to, and I'm an only child. So I had to arrange everything in the US, get the house cleaned up, get all the paperwork done. Because I was going to rent my childhood home where my dad had still lived. So it was a lot on my plate. And so I thought, okay, by the time this came, that was all behind me. But I thought, okay, I need some time to relax and recover from this crazy year. So, but I'd signed up for an event. I think the MKB Nederland event in The Hague.
Yes.
And at that event, someone I spoke to, I said, I'm looking for kind of a COO role, and someone said, I met someone in my previous session. He was the moderator who was looking for someone like you. So he connected us. And we had a few chats. It was a founder of a transportation company. It had been around for 10 years, so not necessarily a fast startup or scale up, but he really wanted to grow it even further.
Second in command and
structuring. So initially I started. The idea was I would run a few projects, but within a month I was his very clear second in command, basically taking over the day-to-day operations of the company for him, which was for him also great, and for me it was also a huge learning curve. But in the end, it wasn't the kind of sector or industry. We basically connected supply and demand for transportation and primarily courier services. Mm-hmm. So very ad hoc. Most people use couriers if something is messed up or in a rush. Yeah. And I realized that didn't really match with my personality. The founder had been running this company for 10 years and matched with him. But it also meant in the weekends we had to have be on call.
And so I started, weekends and with growing up
and
children.
In the evenings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and we did that every other weekend. So, he used to do all the weekends. And then at some point when I joined, I started doing every other weekend. And I realized, okay, this doesn't fit with me. I'm too structured, too, focused on planning. Some people thrive on that ad hoc and the adrenaline, but that just didn't work for me. And so I did. It was a great learning experience there as well. Basically running this small company. I put in a lot of processes, a lot of structure that really benefited the team that they were really happy about. It was, by the way, also an interesting experience to manage different kinds of people than I had at ABN AMRO. So, people, they're doing planning of transportation, usually a different education level, different kind of motivation. Of course, I'm generalizing a bit here, but that was also a very good learning experience. Because you have to turn on different knobs to motivate them.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but in the end I did do that, and that was a really valuable experience as well. But in the end, I decided to leave the company. And that's when I started Nearwater. That's
all right. Here we are at Nearwater. What is your vision for Nearwater?
Yeah,
because there you are in transition. Also from your role in Masters of Scale, and it's becoming a platform and less needed of human interference and more in platform. So that allows you also to have more time and energy to put into Nearwater.
Yeah.
And that was what I noticed in the before we dove into the pre-conversation. I did my research and I was like, hey, it's interesting. I find two personas of Tessa when I'm looking at your LinkedIn bio and when I'm looking at Nearwater, and there's also a really really drivenness behind empowering women. So I was like, okay, this is interesting because I have multiple. Of course, we all have multiple roles in life, but it was the corporate and the Masters of Scale is very clear, and now Nearwater. What is the big plan behind it?
Before getting to the big plan, let me first start with why I wanted to then branch out as basically a freelancer at the time. It's because I realized that I loved working on the strategic growth of companies, of smaller companies. I definitely wanted to stay with startups and scale-ups. I'd been working in SME at the time, and I realized, okay, I love the fast growing, because that's where I thrive in chaos and bringing order to it. So that's what I can find about you. That I find about you is turning complexity into simplicity and chaos into control. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what I wanted to do for startups and scale-ups, but more on a project basis. I also realized that I love working in dynamic environments, but for me, if things get into business as usual, I start to get bored. So for me, I realized, okay, if I can work for several companies at the same time, that'll keep it dynamic for me. And so that was also when I made a decision to say, okay, I don't want to work as a COO full-time for a company anymore, as I'd been doing those past 2 years after I left ABN AMRO. But I want to, support companies. And at the time, it was more on a project basis or a consultancy. To be honest, fractional, thinking about fractional? I didn't know about fractional back then. Okay. Yeah. I think fractional had already started in the US, but it hadn't come over to Europe yet. So it was a unknown term to me at the time. Mm-hmm. So my idea was maybe more consultancy. I don't like that word, to be honest. I've also dropped it.
What do you don't like about that word?
I feel like consultants, they give advice and then they say farewell and they say, you figure it out on your own. And what I love is, yes, giving advice and creating a strategy, but then also helping to execute it. Yeah. Not necessarily full time.
No.
But it's also oftentimes not needed full time. So, that was, but indeed, about a year and a half ago, I came across the term fractional and the fractional CEO, and I read about it, and I was like, oh,
this is it.
That's what I want to do. And also we made fractional part of the Masters of Scale offering. So that, because I said I want to explore it like 1 or 2 days a week. And so already almost a year ago, I put a post on LinkedIn and ended up getting one client from that I've been working with since last June. Only half a day a week, but for me, it was perfect way to get started.
Yeah.
And, I realize I'm a perfect second in command. We're not all the visionary entrepreneurs. I don't think we all can be. We all shouldn't be, because then we have a problem, right?
Yeah, then we have a real problem.
Yeah, there was a problem on the execution side. And so my vision with Nearwater is that I bring the execution power, but also with a very strong strategic and conceptual mindset. Yeah. And that's really what I'm hoping to achieve. I don't necessarily need to build a whole company around it. To be honest, I like the freedom and flexibility of being on my own.
Yes.
But I do love working with people.
Yeah.
So I'm already obviously with Masters of Scale we were the three of us, and I really enjoyed that, and it was such a valuable experience. And now I'm also, obviously we still work together for Masters of Scale, but I now more creating collaborations and seeing how I can work with other people, and obviously my clients are also who I'm doing it with.
Yes.
So my one client, my fractional client I've had since last June, we obviously speak on a regular basis. We have our weekly catch-up meetings and to discuss things. But in between, she's a solo founder, so I'm her strategic sparring partner, because that's what she was missing as well. So for me, my vision is that I'm not only helping with the execution, but also that strategic sparring partner when that's maybe missing, especially for solo founders. I don't necessarily need to only work with solo founders, because I think bringing in the female or gender equality aspect to it, I think it can also be powerful if I can join a full male co-founding team for at least a period of time to bring in the diversity aspect.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. We need that. The world needs that.
Yeah. So so that's really my vision. I do also hope to maybe at a more in some kind of digital product help people to bring more structure and focus and clarity to what they're doing. But that's still in the making. But I do have that idea. I also sometimes have sometimes it pops into my mind to write a book, but then maybe not about this, but more about angel investing. But that's a different story. So I have all these these long-term plans in my head, but I'm first focusing on rebuilding, getting this one off the ground, and basically relaunching Nearwater and relaunching Tessa.
Yeah.
Because the past 5 years I've been out there as Masters of Scale.
Yes.
And of course, Master of Scale is still a part of who I am and what I do. But this year is really about launching me.
Yes.
And what I can do and where I can add value.
That's a great starting point for going deeper and deeper into our personal journey, right? But before we do that, there's also the female ventures, they're really focused on helping women succeed.
Yeah.
In the best possible way, and empowering, and without doing any assumptions like, okay, you're a woman yourself, and that's the reason. Why? What's the deeper why behind that? Yeah,
that's it's a great question, and of course, when you asked it during the preparation, I thought, I've never thought about where that drive and motivation comes from. What I do know is that it's something I struggled with myself when I was starting out my career. It was only when I read the book Lean In. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but by Sheryl Sandberg. Great book, by the way, for if you haven't read it.
Option B is also a very good book. You know that one?
No, Option B, no.
I will give it to you. It's in my bookshelf.
Okay, great.
And but Sheryl Sandberg is a great example.
Yeah, I read that when I was in my early 30s, I think. So working at ABN AMRO, and to me it was an eye opener. I thought, it's not, because I had one time at ABN AMRO where I felt discriminated because I was a woman, and that was in Pakistan. So obviously So when I was running a workshop at the beginning of the workshop, he refused to shake my hand.
Oh.
At the end of the 3 days, he shook my hand and thanked me profusely. So that was, of course, a great win. But other than that, I'd never had felt discriminated against for being a woman working at ABN AMRO, or just in general. But reading that book, I realized I'm holding myself back. I have these internal barriers that are holding me back. And that was for me a huge eye-opener. And I ended up joining a lean-in circle in The Hague. And that was I ended up being a member of that for 10 years. So basically all throughout my 30s and early 40s. And that was fantastic learning experience for me. We were a group of women about varying between 10 and 15. We'd coach each other on things. We'd pick up topics to learn for, say, personal branding or networking or negotiations, conflict management. And that was, for me, an eye-opener. And it helped me in my career to ask for things instead of, expect things to come to me. When I moved into a new role at ABN AMRO at some point, they had promised me a promotion, but it didn't come. And
you kept waiting for it, and it didn't.
Yeah, but I didn't wait long
No.
because I'd learned enough at that point that I realized, no, I need to demand it. I need to ask for it. And really, that whole process made me realize it's not only about how well you perform, but it's also about who you know and making yourself visible. And that was for me I wish I'd known that in my earlier career days. And I think that's also where the motivation comes from. When because Lean In was also about helping yourselves in a close knit group. My co-founder of Masters of Scale, Dielke, she founded Female Ventures in 2016. And Female Ventures is a foundation which focuses on empowering women in their careers, no matter what kind of career, whether you're an entrepreneur or working in a corporate or a freelancer. The career is your venture. That's where the name
Female Ventures.
Where the name Female Ventures comes from. Although sometimes it can be a little confusing because of the other association with ventures. But here, your venture is your career, and I realized, so I became part of that community when I got to know Dielke. I'd heard about it before, but I personally thought it was for entrepreneurs before I'd met Dielke. But when I became part of it, I realized, this is great. I was further in my career at the time. I was in my early 40s, and I realized, I've learned so much. I can really give value back now as well. And that was my motivation also to become
Pay it forward principle.
Exactly. So I first became the city director of the volunteer team in Delft, The Hague during Corona. So that was kind of a strange time since our foundation was focused on doing events in person. We shifted to online, but it wasn't fully the same. Because every event we had, there was like magic in the room. This is the special. And by the way, men are always welcome to our events.
I know. Yeah. I've been to Utrecht.
Exactly. Of course, Samar has also been on this podcast. Yeah. She was also a city director in Utrecht.
Of Utrecht. Yeah.
And and of course, online, we had that same vibe, but it wasn't completely the same. But fortunately, we also got to start doing things offline again. And I realized, I also thought, I would love to strategically add value to this foundation as well, and also learn what is because managing volunteers was a learning experience for me.
I can imagine.
And keeping them engaged, and especially during Corona. And so a little over 2 years ago, at the end of 2022 or 2023, 2022, I joined the board of Female Ventures and ultimately became the chairperson. Now I'm actually in the process of stepping down. Someone fantastic is going to be replacing me.
Handing over le bateau.
Handing it over to Marta, who's been running our mentorship program.
Yes.
So that's also something we started during the time that I was part of Female Ventures. It first started as a pilot in Rotterdam, and now we've had many cohorts, and we have 60 mentor-mentee couples running in our current program. So that's also been a huge success for female ventures. So, and so for me, that was also, and of course, every conversation I had with someone through the network was inspiring to me as well, that I also learned things from those conversations. I could give a lot, but I was also getting a lot. And so for a while, I was doing Lean In and Female Ventures at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I thought, they're very different. Female Ventures is more bigger events, a larger community, everyone's welcome. Lean In was more close. But at some point, I realized I outgrew Lean In. I was giving more than I was getting. After 10 years, that's, I think, not a surprise. I'd evolved a lot myself. So I ended up, or I decided to stop with the Lean In circle and focus fully on female ventures. But during the time, of course, I landed more in the startup scale-up world and realized, okay, there's a huge lack of women in entrepreneurship. Being at ABN AMRO, the percentages were okay. They're still, of course, not high enough that, we're not nowhere near 50-50. But and when I moved into entrepreneurship, it was even worse. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh my goodness, I was actually quite shocked. And I started to learn more also about the funding gap, that only 1% of VC funds go to female founded.
At that moment, it was 1%. Oh, wow. It's now sort of 2.5%.
No, it hasn't gone up much.
No.
Oh. There's also the amount that goes to diverse teams. Mm-hmm. The 1% that goes to fully female. Female-led. Yeah, and it also varies per country, of course. But indeed, somewhere 1-2%.
Bizarre.
Yeah, but so I think 90% goes to all male founded companies. And it's about 3.5 years ago, I also started to do angel investing. And when I would go to investor events, I was sometimes the only woman in the room. And that was another shock to me. And where I thought, okay, I did not expect this. I didn't, I wasn't aware. I hadn't been in this space for very long. And, and I think that, seeing those and seeing and getting to learn more about the research and hearing the experiences from female founders when they were fundraising, and also in female ventures, oftentimes people join female ventures when they're in transition from corporate to freelancer or from corporate to startup. I saw the struggles that they had, but at least they were taking the step. I think that's what I've seen is that a lot of women don't even dare to take the step into entrepreneurship. And but you see also the research shows it how much value is being lost because of the lack of more, let me call it the feminine influence in entrepreneurship, because I think men can also have feminine qualities. I think it's masculine versus feminine, not only male versus female. And so much value, economic value, is being missed out on because there's not enough women in entrepreneurship. And one of my key personal drivers is making impact. And of course, I can do that. What I'm trying to do through Nearwater by helping companies to with their processes, well. Structure, execute well, find focus and prioritization. But I found it was another way I could make impact in inspiring more women to take the step into entrepreneurship, helping women, because once I'd gotten my footing in the angel investment world. And also in the past 5 years, I've built up my network hugely. I've consciously done that as well. I've worked hard to build up my network. Going to a lot of events, talking to people, approaching people. That's how this ended up. I approached you. I'd seen you in my LinkedIn feed, and I thought, hey, he looks interesting. I sent you a LinkedIn message, and
see where we ended up.
See where we ended up. So I've worked hard on building my network, and I'm now able to also offer that to women who are either fundraising or starting out with entrepreneurship. And that just gives me so much energy.
Kuhu, are you listening? I had a wonderful conversation with Kuhu Singh, and she's the founder of Ember Mind.ai and a mental health app. And she's a solo founder. Very interesting conversation we had. Very intrinsic motivated to get it off the ground. And she's moving slightly to her fundraising fundraising round, and but it's always. And I said, okay, but do you have a clear vision on who do you want to have as do you have a clear vision on your ideal, not customer profile, but investor profile?
Right.
And she was very clear on that one. And she was like, someone who understands, of course, funding, loves to take the lead, but also understand the importance of mental health and support. And I was like, I think I know somebody, but I didn't mention any name, but I'm mentioning her name now in this podcast. Slightly deliberate, it wasn't planned, but more like what I noticed, and that's why I stepped in, what I noticed is there are so many beautiful entrepreneurs with such a with an amazing background, a very good vision. But when it comes to asking and reaching out for specific things as money or as help or as both or whatever, then it becomes challenging. So I'm like,
definitely.
And I would love to also a little bit position the podcast Journeys of Empowerment also a little bit more in the sweet spot or in the intersection of change makers, social impact, entrepreneurship, also when it comes to funding, but to make it more open that, hey, if you need something, just ask for it.
Yeah.
Reach out.
Yeah. That's oftentimes with women, they are afraid to take to take up space. And take up space also means reaching, asking someone for feedback, reaching out to, because they think, oh no, they're so busy, I don't want to waste their time.
Yeah, and what I also come to learn is that when we are going to find a new job and we look at the job application, I read that, and it's a slightly generalization, but men think, okay, well, 4 out of 10, I'm perfectly well capable, so let's go.
I'll bluff the rest.
Yeah, I'll bluff the rest. And women tend to hold back until they think, well, 8 out of 10, maybe this job is something for me.
Yeah. Actually, that's in the Lean In book. That's when I first read that. That was also for me an eye-opener when I was, because of course, internally at ABN AMRO, we'd have to also apply to new roles. And it was so recognizable. Yeah.
Recognizable for you yourself, or recognizable also for yourself and also the examples you've seen?
Both.
Around you.
Yeah. At the time, of course, I was much earlier in my career, and I definitely recognized that. I thought, oh no, I'm not going to apply for that job because I don't meet enough of the criteria.
This was a sidestep, and then, it was so the and now you're bringing it together, right? The funding, your aim for angel investment, with the angel initiative.
Yeah, so I started angel investing 3.5 years ago, as I mentioned, with a group called Great Stuff Ventures, founded by someone that I knew from ABN AMRO, and there were 20 of us. But we don't necessarily we invest in great people doing great stuff. That's where the name Great Stuff Ventures comes from. But it's not only focused on female founders. As I started to become more aware of the challenge that female founders face when fundraising, I started to reach out or try to find my way in that landscape. See if there was already. I came across Joanna Invests, of course, from Claire Tange. Yes. That was an amazing first step, and then I met Wiegertje Groenveld, and she told me about the Angel Initiative, and which is women invest or learning to do angel investing together, and together investing in female-led companies. It can also be diverse teams, by the way. It's not at least 25% of the shares have to be in the hands of a woman. or someone who identifies as a woman.
Yes.
And that for me was, I mean, to be honest, in the meantime, I had, gotten a lot more into grow my network. A lot of female founders were already knew how to find me. So for me, the Angel Initiative was also great because what I noticed is that certain propositions didn't really fit with Great Stuff Ventures. Great Stuff Ventures is very much also VC models, VC returns, and different types of. And it's a quarter, 3/4 men, a quarter women. So certain propositions didn't resonate there. But then I realized if I brought them to the Angel Initiative, huge resonation there. I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Even a company I had invested in myself, Elfin.
Puck.
Yeah, well, now Lieke. Yeah. Puck has left.
Yeah.
She's
now in Japan. I saw a picture.
Yeah, she's indeed. She's traveling.
Yeah.
So I invested in them, I think, over 2 years ago. When they had a smaller round, actually that came through Joanna Invest, and when they started raising a bigger round, I brought them to Great Stuff Ventures, but yeah, not enough appetite. But then when they went to the Angel Initiative, there was huge traction to invest. In the end, they decided not to raise a second round because they thought, okay, our organic growth is going great. So, but yeah, that was for me also an eye opener. I thought, okay, and that's why I like having both. Let me call them vehicles, because also I made a decision at some point. I don't remember exactly when, that all my investments that I do outside of Great Stuff Ventures will be in female-led companies. So that's a commitment I made to myself. As I said, I don't remember, I think maybe 2 years ago. And so the Angel Initiative has been a great, but I've always loved giving trainings and, educating people. When I worked first at General Electric and then ABN AMRO, I used to train people on Lean Six Sigma. And
you're certified.
So I'm a certified black belt from GE.
Yeah.
Of course, the mothership of Lean Six Sigma, or Six Sigma definitely. And I really missed standing in front of a group teaching them something, because it always gave me so much energy, or even running workshops. I did a little bit of that in my more strategy focused role when I was in ABN AMRO, but I hadn't done it since I left ABN AMRO, and I really missed that. So 2 years ago, someone asked me to share my experiences of being an angel investor at an event for female entrepreneurs. And of course, I was so nervous. I was like, I've only been doing angel investing for like a year. What value can I add? My imposter syndrome completely took over at some point.
Just a second. How do you deal with before? Because you come across as very articulated, very well spoken, very as you do, and but of course we have also an internal life and an internal system. And how do you when those feelings pop up, what do? What helps you? Because Journeys of Empowerment is also about those kind of situations. And what can we learn from it? Yeah,
what personally helps me is a lot of preparation. I wrote out a whole script. I made cards, practiced a lot. Not to the point. In the end, I didn't use the cards.
No, but it's in your head.
It's already in my head. Yeah. So for me, that helps me the most.
Pre-programming.
Yeah, pre-programming, preparing a lot. Not always. Like for this, I didn't prepare.
No.
But this is a different kind of conversation, of course. It's not a presentation where people are looking to you for your expertise. But for me, that was angel investing. I didn't feel like it was my expertise yet then. Now it's a different story. But that was almost 2 years ago. But that opened up a whole new world for me for speaking opportunities. After that, I was in a panel at the Next Web. I was in a panel at a Funds Up event, and all because I was a female angel investor. And of course, you can maybe call it reverse discrimination, right? They were looking. They wanted a female angel investor. But
let it be then, right?
I thought I still have value to add.
We won't meet or shift the needle, right? To move the
exactly.
needle. So
But that first event for She Credit, and I have to give credit to Tineke Rense. She's the one who asked me to present. That was such a confidence boost for me because I got so much positive, warm feedback after the event, or even during. I mean, I got so many questions. It took way too long, but that was such a confidence booster for me that I thought, okay, yeah, I can do this. I add value here, and since then, the speaking engagements, the teaching engagements have kept coming. Not only a lot for angel investing, but now also more on me as a person, on scaling. It started to develop, and I realized, as nervous as I get, I really love being in front of an audience, sharing my insights, meeting other amazing people, not only in the panel but in the audience, and so that's what I've also loved about the Angel Initiative. It's also a new opportunity for me to teach. So, for example, next Tuesday, April 22nd, we're giving a workshop on getting started with the angel investing. We developed this for the Her Capital Connection event, which we had at the end of January. So I gave that together with Wiegertje during that session. Now I'm doing it on my own for online on Tuesday it's for women only, unfortunately, but I'm
women only aspiring
angel investors,
right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So, but now also more giving more talks on just getting started with angel investing for founders. So, for example, last week I did it for FemStart.
Yes.
I did it for the AMS Institute not too long ago. So yeah, it's fun, and now I'm not nervous anymore because I feel really comfortable in my knowledge of angel investing and the whole fundraising landscape, and that's also a nice tie-in back to Masters of Scale because we were focusing on supporting our clients with fundraising. I got to understand the inner workings of also more the VC, model of fundraising, not only angel investing, which of course I experienced from the investor side. But so I also feel comfortable asking or answering questions, sharing knowledge about also raising from a VC. So that's been also an unexpected twist in my career.
Well, maybe unexpected, or was it really unexpected?
To be honest, yeah. When Tineke first asked me, I did not expect that would open up a whole world of opportunities for speaking engagements, whether panels or juries. Also one leads to the other, right? Because I gave a talk for the Funding Roots event of AMS Institute and the Demonstrator Lab. Now at 50 May, I'll be in the panel or in the jury of the Demonstrator Lab pitch event. So one also is leading to the other. So no, I didn't see this coming. No. I more expected to be, as I had been in the past, presenting or teaching on something in the process or operational. But I guess being a female angel investor is what makes me unique, because there's not a lot of us, and there's even less of us that are willing to take the stage.
Well, happily that you do, and that brings me to a more personal. How is all your drivenness in when it comes to your intrinsic motivation to empower, especially women? Where does that fuel come from? Because it comes from a deep down inside. It's intrinsic motivated, and how much of that is related to your personal background, for instance?
Yeah, that's again, of course, when you first asked me this question, I had to think back, and you also certain things we talked about triggered. But as I said, I think first of all, it stems from my personal experiences and having struggled and unknowingly struggled actually, and wishing I'd known certain things earlier. I think that's and I see the same thing with female founders now starting with the fundraising process, and they have no idea. It's like a whole different world. It's I basically had to learn a whole new language when it comes to investing and fundraising, and so if you don't know that language, if you don't have the network, it's really hard and can be very scary. So for me, I think the intrinsic motivation is giving back and making impact and helping others. It may also stem back to the fact that, I was an only child, and I was always daddy's girl. And, so I had my dad who would take me up on the roof to fix things. He never treated me differently. He always made me feel like I could do anything. So I think that's may also be, kind of what's driving that. I want to help other women to also realize they can do anything, because that's really the case. If you put your mind to it, and of course there's always circumstances that, whether they're financial or health-wise can maybe get in the way or slow you down. But if you keep working at it, the consistency, I think that's, you can achieve anything. And I mean, look, I'm 47, and I'm doing a completely, I've done a career shift, and I keep evolving as well. I was listening to a podcast yesterday from Mel Robbins,
yes,
about how, of course, certain like Vera Wang didn't sell or make a wedding dress till she was 40. All these amazing things. So I think that's where it fuels from. That I always made to feel like I could do anything. At the same time, my dad set really high standards for me, unknowingly. He didn't realize that he was doing that, but I always felt like I had to live up to, because he was a CEO. He did really well in business. He was very charismatic, and that was always he was always my role model. And of course, he passed away 7 years ago, and that was really hard. And the other thing that you triggered in me was I lost my mother when I was 21, and she took her own life. She was bipolar, and I think maybe that's also like I wish I could have helped her. So it could be that also has a role. I don't know. I'd have to dig into that deeper. I've never done that, but potentially, wanting to help other women. That it stems from empowering. Yes. Empowering. Yes. That's a good difference. Helping versus empowering. Yes. Because that's also always been my manager leadership style is empowering other people. I once had a manager who also said, it's my job to put people in the sunlight. And that's always what I've also tried to do, to put people in the sunlight. And I think that's maybe. But I know you probably have other ideas, deeper ideas, and I'm sure we could explore this further.
Deeper ideas. No, there is always when there is somebody is intrinsic motivated about and really, and you can see that, you can feel that. That makes me very curious where that comes from. But as you mentioned, your father as a huge role model. Luckily, he was, and a huge role model. Of course, also the big loss of your mother who took her life, and also the whole way in being a child and experiencing bipolar behavior around you. It all fuels us, right?
Yeah. Although to be honest, I didn't know. My mom told me when I was 18, and I really only experienced the behavior in the half a year before she passed away. So that's it was very much under control through medication. At some point that stopped, and that's when she switched medication, and that's when I experienced, although kind of from a little bit from a distance, because I was at university 6 hours away. But then we traveled together in Australia for 5 weeks before I did a study abroad there. And that's when I did experience it, firsthand. My dad also we were doing a bus tour, and my dad made me sit next to her on the bus to really experience it. And she was kind of in the, I'd say, more depressed, angry phase, which I'd never had seen my mom like that. She was always a free-spirited, kind, gentle. And so that was also a strange experience for me. But until I was 18, I didn't even know. So, but of course, hearing the stories from my dad, I realized how hard it must have been for him. I mean, my parents were older when I was born. They were 39. So my mom probably had the bipolar before, but it really came out when she gave birth to me. But my dad basically, he was working a full-time job. He had a newborn, and my mom ended up in the psychiatric hospital for a couple of months. So it was a really tough time for him. And to be honest, I didn't realize that until I had children and they were babies. And he admitted to me saying, yeah, this is bringing back really tough memories for me. I was like, oh, wow. I didn't even realize. And it also more affected my dad because he retired pretty much quite early. I think he was 55 because things, my mom, and I also didn't realize that, but things in the household just weren't running smoothly either. So for him, the candle was burning at two ends. So he decided to retire early. And, what he always said is he didn't know if it was that she was just naturally lazy or if it was her disease that, but things just weren't getting done in the household. But to be honest, I never noticed that. So
what a heavy role your father took upon.
Very heavy, wow. Very heavy. Yeah. And, unfortunately, sometimes alcohol helped him. I mean, it was never a huge problem, fortunately, but I definitely.
Wow.
No, was
you have sometimes a numbing. Yeah, it's we're only human. So but you saying that you really can't specifically remember those things says it all.
Oh, definitely. He was a fantastic dad. Also, after my mom passed away, he very seamlessly, became the best one parent I ever had. So of course, my mom passed away when I was 21, so a long time ago already. I'd spent 21 years with her, but of course, half of which you don't really remember well because, you're a child. And, but of course I spent my adult life having an extremely close relationship with my father. So when he got cancer and then it was a roller coaster for about 3 years and he ended up passing away. That was, I think, even harder than losing my mom. Because I'd had so much of my adult life with him. He'd seen me, moving to the Netherlands, getting married, having children, the career challenges. I had just a couple months before he passed away, I'd made the switch from ABN AMRO to more the entrepreneurial ecosystem.
So
and
he got that switch?
Yeah, he got the switch. Right. And he was definitely proud of me. Of course, I discussed a lot of things with him.
Yeah.
But I really miss that I can't, he can't see the evolution.
Where you're now.
Yeah, where I am now.
Yeah, maybe he does. Maybe he does from somewhere.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so. Yeah. So that's, my dad definitely played a very influential role in my life. And sometimes also, hard. He was, I always said he could sometimes be tough, give tough love, he was always bragged about me to other people, but not always to me. He sometimes didn't say to me, "Yeah, you're amazing. You're so proud." I could feel it, and I heard it from other people, but it was never a direct compliments or anything. No. But sometimes he would just turn to me and say, "I love you." Yeah. So we definitely had a different relationship after my mom passed away. But yeah, sometimes it was tough love. He also had a bad temper, so he could sometimes explode. So that was sometimes, never violent or anything, more just anger, verbal,
But again, we're only human, and if I hear what and try to place myself in his shoes with the situation to deal with, wow. It's a lot. And then especially when his daughter at age 47 says, I didn't know up until 18. Yeah. That's a lot to handle. And that's
definitely.
So thank you for sharing. And I hope for the listener also draws a little bit the picture more where the fuel comes from. And is there for young entrepreneurs, because you started just 4 years ago, your entrepreneurship, if is one advice to the 20-year younger you, with all the whole journey you've gone through, and now you're an entrepreneur, you're an investor, you're now in a transition with your own company. all those kind of things, but also having a corporate, very good corporate background. What would be the advice to the younger you, 20 years younger you?
For me, that would be visibility is so important. Visibility and network. As I mentioned, just doing great work, unfortunately, it's not enough. We sometimes think, especially women, we think, we just work hard and we deliver good results. It'll be enough to get us a promotion or to make the impact we want to make. But, it's not, unfortunately. It's also about making very visible what you're doing, networking with people, asking for things. So I always say to female founders, you need to be active on LinkedIn, show people what you're doing, tell people what you're doing, and network with investors before you even need money, and work hard on your network. I wish I don't know if my career at ABN AMRO would have looked differently if I'd known that maybe even 25 years ago. But it is something I wish I would have known earlier, and it's something I think I've worked on really hard the past 5 years as well, having learned that lesson in the corporate world, to now applying it in this new ecosystem. I make clear, I'm active on LinkedIn. I network a lot. I tell people, what I'm doing.
Does that come easy for you, networking and reaching out? Not now, but when you started it, because when you're living in the corporate life, you know a lot of people, but within the bubble of the corporate life, right? And then all of a sudden you decide, okay, I'm going to move to a different environment to work for. And then all of a sudden we recognize, hey, maybe my network was really in where I was, big, but in the bubble. And now I have to start sort of all over again.
Yeah,
and
I did. Yeah.
Are you a natural outreaching, outgoing person, or did you train yourself to become one?
I think it's a combination of both. I'm one-on-one, I'm a natural outreacher and networker. In groups, I hate it. So if I walk into a huge event where if I don't go with someone or I don't know someone, I'm like, I hate this. Who am I going to talk to? And and even you've talked to someone for a while and that person leaves, you're like, oh God, now what? Now, so, and even now it's different because I know a lot of people when I go to events, so it's much easier. But in the beginning, it did not come naturally. Like my husband, he is extremely, he's a freelancer and he goes to clients, and even if he could sit at the table with the people he's working with, he purposely chooses to go sit at a different table with people he doesn't know. I would never do that.
No, okay.
I always thought I was an extrovert, but I think secretly I'm an introvert. Because it costs me a lot of energy to network with people I don't know.
That's an interesting one. We can check. We have a checklist for you to see where you're at. Did you know the book from Susan White?
No.
Introvert. It's called Introvert, and there's a checklist in it. And of course, I did the checklist and tried to guess what the outcome with my personality was.
Yeah,
I'm much more introvert than I thought.
Yeah.
And
so I think that also because you've clearly taken a journey to reflect inwards. I think that's also, but also, in default, I love to reach out. Yeah,
and I love to connect. On the other hand, I need also a lot of solitude.
Yeah,
so not loneliness, but solitude. Yeah, really solitude.
Me too.
You've seen my little workroom downstairs. It's called the Progress Room with big charts on it, business model canvas and the bow tie and whatsoever. But that is for me, closing that room. I'm really in the bubble after events and love to connect, withdrawing and landing and grounding. So that's the yin and the yang for me.
I recognize that. Like I love networking and connecting people. Like that's also, I'm definitely a natural connector. But if I have like a day or two of events, I need a few days to recover. That's definitely, and I'm better with, if I know people, then I'm fine. It's the not, if I don't know people,
it's the first step. And
it's
then,
the first step. Yeah.
And
so, when I took what they call the Myers-Briggs,
yes,
I always came out as an extrovert, but I haven't taken it for many, many years. I was an ESFJ, I think. But I'm curious what would happen if I would take it now, if I would still be an extrovert. So
maybe you do. Yeah.
When at a certain stage, I'm an extrovert, because some people are like, yeah, but Tessa, how could you even? You're not an introvert. I'm like, I am. I'm secretly shy.
Yeah.
Like if I have to call someone by phone, I hate it. I mean, unless I know them, right? But cold calling is not for me. I will much more take the easy route and send an email or a message, which also is not always good. But
it's always also a little bit attached to the fear of rejection, right? So it's
probably,
we're human.
Yeah.
It's.
I see my daughter has the same thing. Unfortunately, extreme at this moment. She's very shy.
Yeah,
and too much. But we'll see how that develops.
How that develops. Yeah. Hey, we're heading towards the end of this conversation, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I'm enjoying it.
Definitely.
And the purpose of Journeys of Empowerment is, of course, to let's say unpack not only the professional journey but also the personal journey, and to figure out how much relatedness is there between what we're doing, to why we're doing what we're doing, to our personal background and our personal journey. So I think and I hope we accomplish that. And one thing to add, and also out of respect, is the beautiful post you shared on LinkedIn. And I do it out of respect, and I hope you will receive it out of respect, that there was a big loss, and you posted a beautiful LinkedIn post about it. Maybe you can share a little bit about that, because that's also you. And I was really, of course, it was after our pre-conversation call, where I was like, wow, there is so much, Tessa, there is so much in your personal journey, which is strongly tied to why you're doing what you're doing, being someone on a mission. You love to teach, so it's a sort of missionary drivenness behind it. You love to empower. It became much more clear where that comes from, but also can you share a little bit about the posting and why you did why you did that posting?
Yeah, sure. So
I hope you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
We didn't discuss this up front, but
no, I can't,
luckily you
I can't
did the
promise
posting.
that there won't be any tears. Who knows? But so about 2.5 weeks ago, my cat passed away, and she'd been with me for 20 years, and without realizing it until she was gone. Yeah, she was my constant. She was always there. I work from home a lot, but even then, I got her when I was 27.
Yeah,
and she'd seen everything. Been there for me for everything, all the ups, the downs. My children grew up with her. They're now 13 and 15. So
she was your first child.
Yeah, she was my first child, and she was the sweetest soul.
Yeah, I saw the picture, so...
Yeah, she, there was not a bad bone in her. She never bit or scratched, or she always just had love to give, and not pushy, but just there, she would always lie next to me on my lap. So, and I was her chosen human. When we first got her, we had another cat, and unfortunately they didn't get along at some point, and so the other cat moved to my dad's in the US.
Oh.
Yeah. She passed away when she was 10, and my dad 2 years later. So that was we chose the right cat. She was just always there for me. And when I would take a break from work or go to the restroom, I'd always go and pet her. And of course, the older she got, the more she was sleeping. And she when she was younger, she was a lot more active. But she was just always nearby.
Part of your life.
Yeah, part of my life.
Yeah.
And so when she passed away, of course, it was tough for our whole family. But I realized, it was, for me, she was this constant, and I didn't realize how deep the connection was that I had with her. It's the unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted on Facebook, I think the day after it happened. And of course, you see friends, but also in my business environment, I realized, of course, it was affecting my focus, and it was something I was really struggling with and going through. And I think, what, I'm just going to share. I'm going to share what I'm feeling. And I think you said, when we spoke, you also said, you got her 6 years after your mom passed away, and I was like, wow, I never thought of that, and that also triggered thoughts in my life, and so for some reason I had the desire to share this with my LinkedIn network, who I've also, for me, with Female Ventures and all the I feel like since I've gotten into the startup ecosystem, it's become much more of a family feeling on my network on LinkedIn. Of course, with a certain group, not with everyone, but so I had it also. Yes, I'd shared it on Facebook, and of course with a few close friends and family through WhatsApp. But I also had the desire to share it with my LinkedIn group, and I and I also, of course, with the help of ChatGPT, I thought, okay, I also want this to have a business tie into it, because I feel that's the power of LinkedIn. And what ChatGPT made, I was like, oh my God, this is me. Mm-hmm. This is the way that I often hear back from my clients, like, you are my biggest supporter, you're my number one fan. And I think that's what Nava was to me. Mm-hmm. My cat's name was Nava. I think she was always unconditionally, she was there for me, and she loved me. And of course, with my clients, I also try to challenge and be critical, but I'm also their number one fan, and that's that for me, that also what Chat had created resonated so deeply with me. I was like, oh my God, wow, this is amazing. The power also of AI in this situation. Of course, having all the input from me over the past 2 years.
Of course.
It also, for me, I was like, I want to use this. Because I'm rebuilding my website. My Nearwater website is 5 years old, hasn't happened, nothing's happened, and I was like, this so describes well, the steadiness, the calm, the calm, clarity. That's what I love helping people with, and so for me that was also a powerful parallel to what she did for me in my personal life, and. So that's, and I mean, it's just the amount of responses that I've gotten has been so heartwarming. And I said to someone, it's like, in Dutch you say like a warm blanket that came over you in the past few days. It's just been so amazing. People that I don't even know, their second or third connections are commenting on the post saying, I'm so sorry, or they're sending me personal messages. And I was just like, wow, it's amazing how much support you can also feel from a business network like LinkedIn. And I've always noticed that those kind of personal posts, like years ago, I also posted something about my dad. You also feel, it's not only about business. People want to understand the personal side of you as well. And that's what really resonates with them. Yeah,
that's, and I think, the amount of respect what you can get out of the paying respect and paying respect towards you and share, but also the sharing, and also that's why I mention it also is your role as a business leader, as an investor. But hey, at the end of the day, we're human.
Yeah, exactly.
Flesh and blood.
Yeah,
emotions, thoughts, doubts, setbacks, pivotal moments, breakthroughs, whatever. But also we're human, and it makes us whole. So that's what I truly admire, you sharing that post. And I was so happy that it resonated for you and for the acknowledgement of the grief where you go through, but also that at the end of the day, this is life. And you share that, and it's 20 years of your life, and that was right away what popped up in my head was like, hey, I always think in timelines and things, so I see a timeline and it's building up, and I was like, hey, 6 years before, before you got your cat, Nava, Your mother passed away, took her life, and so there are a lot of life events which are formative, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So
she was amazing.
Yeah, no, beautiful. Thank you for sharing, and Tessa, I'm so happy we had this conversation. And if people are curious about you, which I can imagine, where can they find you?
First of all, thank you for having me on this on this podcast. And I think that LinkedIn is the best place. I'm the only Tessa de Flines on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I'm easy to find.
Yes. Okay. And I will share it also, of course, in the show notes. And thank you very much for your openness. And my personal hope, it is unconscious, which comes conscious now. But also was like, I am sure our conversation also humanize a little bit the idea around investing.
I hope so.
Yeah. I hope so. Because there's still a gap. There is a funding gap, obviously. But also there is a gap between the world of informals, investors, VCs, PE, whatever, and the world that does need capital.
Yeah.
And also
sometimes like this.
Yeah,
too, as well.
Yeah. And so I hope we also bridge that a little bit more by sharing our humanness.
Yeah. I'm just a person.
You are not just a person, you are a person.
What I also try to say to founders is, you're special. Money is a commodity. And you have the amazing, incredible, innovative idea. Money you can get anywhere. Of course, it's sometimes harder nowadays, especially. But if you have an amazing idea, you can get money anywhere. So I should be lucky and I should feel privileged to be able to invest in your company. So that's
better closure than this one isn't possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.